So we can see the nature of ego fights that go on at our levels is similarly manifested also at the universal level among great personalities. So, in other words, unless and until one is operating from a pure devotional platform, one is bound to be affected by these lower modes. And therefore, we should be very careful. And it is interesting to also contrast the mood that is prevailing in the Vaikuntha Loka that we studied in the third canto, 15th chapter. How there the whole atmosphere is surcharged with an appreciative outlook towards others and freedom from envy. And here, pride and envy are decorating the hearts of even great individuals just with a very, very simple thing that has happened. Like in another interesting point is that when the frictions have to arise, they don't arise on a big thing. It can happen on a very, very insignificant, so-called insignificant thing. Like here, this whole cursing and counter cursing, if you think about it, how it started is just with Daksha feeling insulted, even though there was no insult from Lord Shiva's side, that somebody did not stand in honor for him. And from there, this whole chaos took place. So Nandishwar, who could not tolerate the, the disrespect that was shown by Daksha towards Lord Shiva, and in fact, after Daksha cursed Lord Shiva, Nandishwar thought of responding to that curse as another curse. And so he ended up cursing not only Daksha, but also the entire Brahmin community. And then we see that now Bhrigu Muni, who was a powerful sage representing the Brahmanical class, he also reacted with a strong curse. So he says that persons vowing to satisfy Lord Shiva will certainly become atheists. They will be diverted from transcendental scriptural injunctions. And these people will imitate Lord Shiva. And in this way, acting in ignorance, they will grow their hair and allow it to mat, decorate their bodies with ashes, and wear bones as ornaments. And they will eat flesh and drink wine. So, because of blaspheming the Brahmanas and Vedas, they will all become, in fact, they have already become atheists. So Prabhupada is writing in the purport number 28 how Bhrigu Muni's curse has come true. That one who takes a vow to satisfy Lord Shiva or who follows such principles will certainly become an atheist and be diverted from transcendental scriptural injunction. Prabhupada is writing, it is sometimes seen that devotees of Lord Shiva imitate the characteristics of Lord Shiva. For example, Lord Shiva drank an ocean of poison. So some of the followers of Lord Shiva imitate him and try to take intoxicants like ganja or marijuana. Here the curse is that if someone follows such principles, he must become an infidel and turn against the principles of Vedic regulation. It's said that such devotees of Lord Shiva will be such Shastra Paripanthinah, which means opposed to the conclusion of Shastra or scriptures. This is confirmed in the Padma Puran also. Lord Shiva was ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to preach the impersonal or Mayavad philosophy for a particular purpose, just as Lord Buddha preached the philosophy of voidness for particular purposes mentioned in the Shastras. And then Prabhupada is writing why it is sometimes necessary to do that. So Prabhupada is writing, sometimes it is necessary to preach a philosophical doctrine which is against the Vedic conclusion. Now this is very interesting. In the Shiva Puran, it is stated that Lord Shiva said to Parvati that in the Kali Yuga, in the body of a Brahman, he would preach the Mayavad philosophy. Thus, it is generally found that the worshippers of Lord Shiva are Mayavadi followers. Lord Shiva himself says, Mayavadam Asat Shastram. Asat Shastra, as explained here, means the doctrine of Mayavad impersonalism or becoming one with the Supreme. So we know Shankaracharya is considered to be that special Brahmana who came to preach Mayavad philosophy. Bhrigumuni cursed that persons who worshipped Lord Shiva would become followers of this Mayavad Asat Shastra, which attempts to establish that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is impersonal. Besides that, among the worshippers of Lord Shiva, there is a section who live a devilish life. So, contrasting with the Asat Shastra, Srimad Bhagavatam and Narad Pancharatra are authorized scriptures that are considered Sat Shastra, or scriptures which lead one to the path of God realization. Asat Shastra are just the opposite. So, what was the need to generate such a doctrine? So that there can be an easy polarization between the devotees and the non-devotees. So it is pointed out that how the followers of Lord Shiva, they will start imitating him by keeping long hair on their heads, and they will prefer to live on wine, flesh, and other such things. So Prabhupada is continuing with his purport in 29th verse that indulging in wine and meat, keeping long hair on one's head, not bathing daily, and smoking ganja or marijuana are some of the habits which are accepted by foolish creatures who do not have regulated lives. By such behavior, one becomes devoid of transcendental knowledge. In the initiation into Shiva mantra, there are mudrikashtaka, in which it is sometimes recommended that one make his sitting place the vagina and thus desire nirvana or dissolution of existence. In that process of worship, wine is needed, or sometimes in place of wine, palm tree juice, which is converted into an intoxicant. This is also offered according to Shiva Agama, a scripture on the method of worshipping Lord Shiva. So it's pretty mode of ignorance you can see. And so these purports in these sections are strongly bringing out the whole whole, you can say, blasphemous sort of conclusions that are derived from the Vedas on the basis of Mayavad philosophy, and how Bhrigu's curse is leading up to that, and that's what is pointed out in this section. So Jiva Goswami clarifies one interesting thing, that who actually becomes affected. So Jiva Goswami had expressed in the Bhakti Sandarbha that those who worship Lord Shiva as the independent Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot surmount the influence of Bhrigu Muni's curse. So, in other words, there is nothing wrong with going and worshipping Lord Shiva as a Param Vaishnava. There is nothing wrong in um, extolling the glories of Lord Shiva as who he actually is. But what happens is that when one does not recognize Lord Shiva's true position in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such a person comes under the sway of Bhrigu Muni's curse. So it's pointed out that the Vedas, they give the eternal regulative principles for auspicious advancement in human civilization. And the strong evidence of this principle is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is called Janardhan, or the well-wisher of all living entities. So by by blaspheming the principles of the Vedas, which are essentially, you can say, non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, they are the pure and the supreme path of the saintly persons. So suddenly, you followers of Bhutapati Lord Shiva will descend to the standard of atheism without a doubt. And that's the essence of the curse. So if you notice, Nandishwar's curse, Nandishwar became angry at Daksha, but then he directed the curse towards the whole Brahman community. But the Brahman communities are considered to be followers of the Vedas. And therefore, Nandishwar is indirectly also condemning the Vedas. Now, Vedas are actually considered to be pure and supreme path of the saintly persons because the injunctions there are regulated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the advancement of human civilization. And therefore, Bhrigu is saying that because you blaspheme the principles of the Vedas, therefore you will have to descend to the standard of atheism without a doubt. And the standard of atheism is rooted in taking Lord Shiva as an independent personality of Godhead. And that's the overall connection of the effects of all the curses. And Prabhupada is writing in the 32nd purport that Lord Shiva is described here as Bhut Rat. The ghosts and those who are situated in the material mode of ignorance are called Bhutas or Bhutarat, refers to the leader of the creatures who are in the lowest standard of the material modes of nature. Another meaning of Bhuta is anyone who has taken birth or anything which is produced. So in that sense, Lord Shiva may be accepted as the father of this material world. Here, of course, Bhrigu Muni takes Lord Shiva as the leader of the lowest creatures. The characteristics of the lowest class of men have already been described. They do not bathe, they have long hair on their heads, and they are addicted to intoxicants. In comparison with the path followed by the followers of Bhutarat, the Vedic system is certainly excellent, for it promotes people to spiritual life as the highest eternal principle of human civilization. If one decries or blasphemes the Vedic principles, then he falls to the standard of atheism. So, amidst all these cursings and counter cursings that are going on, Lord Shiva was completely silent because he is a pure Vaishnava. He is unaffected by all the external circumstances here. And what he did without speaking, he just simply rose from his seat and swiftly left the sacrificial arena. And Lord Shiva was then followed by all his disciples. And so, in this way, the whole 1000-year sacrifice culminated in these uh, tumultuous cursing and counter cursing. And so after that, the participants, they took bath in in Ganga. It is described that yeah, they took bath in the confluence of Ganga and Yamuna, and and in this way they purified their heart before departing for their respective abodes. So next, you will see how Daksha is going to organize another such sacrifice eventually, and how that is going to become the cause for Sati's leaving her body and Daksha's getting a goat head as cursed by Nandishwara. Thank you very much.